everyone. I'm Marianne, and I'm one of the co-founders of Eric's House. And I'm here today with a very special person, Jill McMahon. Welcome, Jill.
Good morning.
We can call her Jilly.
Call me whatever you'd like, my dear.
Jill is a licensed mental health practitioner. She's a licensed counselor, and she's been involved with Eric's House since our inception in 2017. And she was my first stop in my grief journey after I lost Eric. Jill is located here in Phoenix, Arizona, and for the last 17 years, she has specialized in working with people who are bereaved by suicide. And I know that for many people who experience suicide, it's very different than other types of losses. And so working with somebody like Jill, who has experience in that particular type of loss, can be very beneficial. So welcome again, Jill.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about how to help someone who is impacted by suicide. Many times we hear, well, there just are no words to express what we're going through.
Right.
But there are some tips and things to consider when you have a friend who lost someone. And there's some things that you can say, and then we'll also share some things that perhaps are not as helpful. So why don't we start with some statistics?
Do it.
You know, almost 50,000 people have died by suicide. It's the 10th leading cause of death. And in 2019, there were 1.4 million suicide attempts. So this is the type of loss that affects everyone. And there's a lot of taboo and stigma attached to this type of loss.
Absolutely.
So why don't I turn it over to you, Jill? And why don't we start with some of the things that might be helpful to say to a friend?
Well, my dear, I know that I've done this work for almost 20 years now. So a lot of what I have learned about what works for a survivor and what doesn't work for a survivor actually comes from the survivor itself. There is a lot of frustration in feeling so alone in this grief. Not only are they mourning, grieving, desperate, traumatized, but they feel very, very alone. And often that is validated by the comments that their neighbors or their friends or their coworkers will make to them mistakenly after having experienced a loss. So, typically people don't know how to deal with discomfort. We are horrible grievers in this country to start with. So out of our discomfort and not knowing how to address or respond to a mom or a wife or a grandfather, we may choose not to say anything at all about their loss. Yeah. And what that actually ends up doing is really only making that lost survivor feel even more abandoned, left behind, or alone.
Yeah, very isolating.
Very much so, right? So I think I would always implore those people that are really concerned or really want to help to actually talk about the person that's been lost. Don't be afraid to say, tell me about Eric.
Right.
Don't be afraid to say, no, really, how are you today? Right. I can handle it if you tell me. Instead, what I think we see most of all is that your coworker or your neighbor, when they see you walking down the street, will instead avert eye contact, look down at the ground, or look over, all of a sudden, start taking this phone call that they've just received. Right. It's just out of fear. We don't know how to sit in discomfort.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think for many of the people that were supporting me after Eric died, they just didn't know what to say. Right. And they were afraid to say anything because they thought perhaps it's going to make me feel bad.
Exactly.
So I love your point about being sure to say the person's name.
How hurtful for a mother or anybody for that extent to have this belief that the moment that their person died, the whole world forgot about them.
Right.
And that isn't the message that we as non-grievers are attempting to send, but that is the message that is being sent.
Absolutely.
When we're afraid to talk about our person. I would also implore anybody who has come across a survivor of suicide or knows anybody in their life that has experienced this loss, don't ask what happened.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
And although your intentions may be innocent to a survivor, it just feels like you want to know the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like your curiosity is what is taking center stage instead of just the pain of the absence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I did have that experience where somebody said, what was it like when you found him? What happened? What led up to it? And for me, it was just too, deeply painful for me to even be able to talk about it. So yeah, I think that's another really good point.
So follow the survivor's lead.
Right.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
So there are some survivors, and I know that you've met them, that really need to reiterate, regurgitate what I always say, vomit out their story, because that is healing and that is helpful for them. So if the opposite is true and your neighbor or your coworker or your cousin needs to share the story over and over again, just sit with them and listen to it and be ready to take it on if you can hold it. Over and over again, knowing that you're helping them cleanse, you are helping them heal.
Yeah.
One thing that I think everybody has heard is, oh, I understand.
Right.
I lost my grandfather last year, so
Right.
I understand what it was like for you to lose your boyfriend to suicide.
Right. And, that we, in working with our clients here at Eric's House, we hear that all the time, that, people are being supported, but their friends don't really understand what they're going through. And often the people that love you and support you are also hurting with you, but they just want the old you back. They just want you to get back to normal.
Exactly.
And this idea of getting back to normal after a suicide is hard for a loss survivor to digest. I mean, you can't imagine that your life's ever going to get back to normal.
And what is normal?
What is normal?
Right?
Exactly.
Your world has been shaken. The foundation of everything you knew has been eternally cracked. So normal doesn't exist anymore, right? You are who you are at your core, and that man or woman will resurface again, but normal no longer exists, right? So kind of what I'm hearing you say is there is this urge at times for the griever to take care of those people around them and to help them understand their pain and their loss. And that is the very last thing that we would want the newly bereaved to feel like they have to do for us. So it's really just sit with them. I say the number one piece of advice that I give to others that are attempting to support somebody that has experienced this trauma is just to listen.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix.
Yeah.
Because we as survivors don't think that this can be fixed.
Right.
And honestly, it can't be fixed. We can heal.
Right.
Don't try to make it better. Don't try to, those comments that we've heard over and over again, well, he's in a better place. Or thank goodness you have another child. Or you're young enough that you'll be able to find another partner someday.
Right.
Those are all just, again, discomforts that you're holding in your gut and in your belly and your way of attempting to help or fix, when really we just want eye contact, understanding and patience of I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't, and I can't understand, but I'm not leaving your side. And I will be here. Maybe if you don't want me here right now, I'll be here in 4 weeks, and I'll be here in 12 weeks.
Right.
And if you're ready to talk about it, I'm ready to listen.
There's also this idea that sometimes the loss survivor doesn't want to talk. Sometimes we just want to be alone with our grief so that we can process it and understand and envision what life is going to be like next. And, we don't want anybody to feel bad when a loss survivor says, it's not a good time for me to talk right now, but thank you. Thank you. When I'm ready to talk, I'll let you know. And in that case, just acknowledge them and acknowledge that they're hurting, and just be ready to support them whenever they need you.
That's powerful,
Yeah.
Marianne. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because I know in my case, and we hear it a lot from our clients at Eric's house, that I just want to be alone. And I think that's a really valid point for...
So think back to the beginning. Did you know what you needed in the beginning?
Absolutely not.
And how many times did you lovingly receive that question, what can I do for you? Right. What do you need?
Right, right. Well, I received it a lot, and I did have quite a bit of support.
But at that time, I will say that our brains, or the brains of anybody who's experienced a trauma, they're scrambled eggs. It's
Yeah.
the best analogy
Well,
I can use,
that's
right?
that's
So
exactly right.
I'm not, I can't tell you what I need. I can't tell you what I want right now because I'm just trying to breathe. And if I get dressed today and I return 2
Right.
phone calls, and I'm talking 3 months out from a loss, then I've had a hell of a day. Right. So I will either let you know when I'm ready to talk. It's powerful if a survivor can say that, but oftentimes survivors can't. So I just implore those that want to be supportive to just be patient.
Right.
And just because a survivor doesn't want to talk in the beginning doesn't mean that 6 weeks out or 12 weeks out you can't circle back and check in then, because the brain is a little less scrambled eggs at month 3.
Yeah, exactly. I love that analogy, scrambled eggs. We often describe it as complete chaos. Our world has been turned upside down. So just acknowledge that that's where the loss survivors are, and there's no timeline. There's no specific way for one person to heal. Everybody's unique in their grief. And so I love the final comment about just being able to be patient and just allow that person to be with their grief and support them wherever you can.
Perfect.
Well, you can see why we love Jill at Eric's house. She's a wealth of knowledge. And today is World Mental Health Day, October 10th, and it's also the day of our annual fundraiser. And if you would like to make a donation, we would love you to make a donation so that we can continue our work in helping loss survivors heal. And you can do so at www.ericshouse.org or givebutter.com/Eric's house. So thank you very much. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and have a great day.